Yeah, people just assume that everybody just starts off awesome. It's just clearly no.
Yeah.
People, not everybody starts awesome. I,
No.
actually my best friend, I think he still has a painting that I did when I was in school, and it's this really bad painting of the bald Chinese man. It's like a toy that we had, and I painted it because we used to like make these funny like TV shows, like with our like 8 millimeter video camera, and when we were kids, we always talk about like if YouTube was around when we were kids, we would have done something with that for sure, you know, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
So I'm not mad. YouTube's still around. And I still do other stuff, but my point is that like this was a childhood memory of ours. So I did like a painting of it for one of my classes using acrylics, and it was pretty garbage. Yeah, I think he still has it. If he doesn't, that'd be funny, but that'd be fine. But like, I'm gonna ask him actually. I'm gonna be like, do you have like the original um, old Chinese man thing? Here, let me see if I can. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, I think about that, like, just like the the stuff that, like I would try to make, like movies and stuff with my friends when we were kids and all that, and like just thinking about if I if I had, yeah, like YouTube or something back in the day, like how much stuff would I have like shared when I was a kid that like I'd be so embarrassed about like as an adult, like looking back on it, I would have been like, no, I never should have like like posted that anywhere. Like I thought it was
Yeah,
good, but it was terrible.
yeah, totally. So
Kind of
he,
glad I didn't have.
yeah, so he's actually side note, like I'm actually teaching him to become an artist. So I've been like doing these. I have a theory about how people can improve, and so like I've started off giving him these simple, mundane tasks of just drawing. This is so funny. Anyway, just mundane tasks of like drawing cubes and lines using perspective, and then I asked him to draw a face from what he thinks a face looks like. That's what he did. It's pretty bad, but then I'm just training him, and he's one of my he's very committed. He's a very committed artist. Ignore that.
Mhm.
That's something else for him. Or not artist, but committed person. So I just tell him what to do, and he just does it. And I told him you don't have to spend a lot of time, and he's just been doing it. Whenever he asks for feedback, then I try to like give him feedback based off of what, um, because I want to try to build a book around this, like a PDF, not like a book, but like a PDF, where when you get a chance, I'd like you to share it with me. So I can do a before and after. So he still does. He still have it. And this is like a really old painting that I did. So I'm gonna do a noted version of it, and I think it'll be fun. I want to join in on you guys. It's fun. I found an old USB um, external drive. I found an old external drive, and I haven't gone through it yet. But I'm like, oh snaps! There might be some really old work in there. I found a really old one that I had in school.
Wow, it's like
Yeah,
time traveling.
yeah. 'Cause I was cleaning up my garage and I found it. Anyway, yeah, like a lot of stuff that I'm trying to do with this experiment that I have him doing is this idea that I think I could teach anybody to become a badass, and I think there's a real road to do it. A lot of these books are like how to draw a dog, and it's just like, like do this and do this, and a lot of what they're asking you to do doesn't take account things that I've learned over the many years of teaching is that some people just don't know how to even draw straight lines, let alone like a head of a dog, like a silhouette of a dog head.
Right.
Most of you guys, I rarely have students that are just so novice because most of the people who take my classes have some artistic background, right? So I never really experienced this, but every so often, I get people who would love to learn more about art, and they just don't know where to start. And so I'm trying to make a book, and I want to make it free too. I don't really care about making money off of it, which teaches anybody how to become an artist. In fact, it's part of my plan to build like a YouTube channel or some sort of website. I don't know, that's built around um, teaching people how to do anything, right? And like I've mentioned before, like my goals are to be the best teacher I could possibly be, you know, and
Mm.
in all regards. When I was lying in bed after my surgery, I had a lot of time to think, and one of the things I thought about was thinking about the situation of like people who are stuck in uh, poverty-driven communities, and that really sucks for them. And I had like an argument slash not argument, but like a debate with like my wife and my good friend about this because they had the position of like everybody has a choice. Everybody can if they want to get out of the situation they can, and I said I don't think that's the case. I don't think everybody knows that they have a choice. I agree.
Yeah, I don't think so either. It seems to me like, if you don't, it's easy to say that everyone has a choice when you sit there with like access to like the internet and information and technology and all this stuff. But like,
Yeah,
if you don't have any access to like any of that stuff, like you're never gonna know even about what's outside of like the area that you live in. Like you're not gonna have any
yeah.
connection with anything, so you're not gonna know about any of that
There's
stuff.
this meme of this 13-year-old girl who's like, "Catch me outside, catch me outside," right? Like she's
Oh yeah.
yeah, she's really beyond anything I've seen
Uh,
before. And there's a meme about it, and my friends were all playing Overwatch, and they were like making fun of it, right? Catch me outside. And I was like, who is this? What is it? What are you guys saying? And they're like, oh, it's like this meme that just like resurfaced for whatever reason. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then I looked into it, and I saw the video clip, and I didn't think it was funny at all, right? I understand why people think it's funny. Like it is funny, but like to me, I was just like, whoa, like why is this 13-year-old like so far gone? Like what happened, right?
yeah.
To me, because I have kids, and like I was like sympathetic to the fact that what if your kid's a freaking train wreck?
Right.
And I was just like, oh shit. And I just thought about it and I was like, what's going on? Like, what's going on, man? And this type of stuff really affects me dramatically because, I like going back to kind of the statement that I was trying to make earlier, which is, I have a real ambitions of changing the world in some way, in some fashion. And mostly to try to help as many people as I can. There's this really cool thing that I heard once on Tim Ferriss. That some guy was like talking about, some people want to be millionaires with dollars. I want to be a millionaire with changing people's lives. And I was like, oh,
Mm.
that's dope. I like that. Like that's a much more gratifying life goal than to make more money. You know, um, case in point, Trump has a lot of money and is still not happy. I think he's in a Twitter war now, guys. If you don't know, with
Uh,
the president of Mexico about the wall,
yeah.
which is just like, come on, come on, guys, like, stop. And
That's so crazy.
so getting back to topic, I just watched, I read into it. I was just watching the video. I was trying to find the whole clip because I was like completely fascinated. I was like, I want to know what happened, right? And there's some instances where Dr. Phil's bringing up the idea that she had to deal with her mom's cancer. Her mom had cancer twice, and I was just like, yeah, that could be intense. That could be very rough. I'm curious to like the whole story because it's it's one thing to have the mom explain her side of the story, but also would like to know the perspective of the child. But the reality is that she's so far gone. It's like really hard for her to kind of emotionally detach and reveal maybe her down downfall. But the point I'm trying to make with all this is that going back to some people just don't have choices. It's not that I agree. Like people do, if they have access to the internet. Like some of these people do have access to the internet. They have access to all the stuff that we do, but yet they're so far removed. And I was telling my friend and my wife like Some people just don't realize that there's options, you know? And when they
Yeah.
see the options, they don't realize that it's achievable for them. They just think it's not. They're like, well, I see that, you're right, but it's like, whatever, I can't do that, right? And it's a failure of the educational system. It's a failure of, parenting and the communities, right? It's a
Yeah.
combination of everything. It's not just one thing. It's like so many different things. The same thing, like if the same issue is like if you look at these these communities, um, these communities are so terrible, right? Like these have these crimes happening every second, but then also at the same time you have like the cops like shredding, people like they're screwing over people and they're like arresting them, they're beating the shit out of them, and even killing some of these young kids, man, or these innocent
Yeah.
people. And but at the same time, there are people that are not innocent that are tremendously terrible. I was talking to my friend about this too at a mixer we had, and I was like, like we live in Irvine, which is like this super suburbia, like it's an amazing community. It's like a park every block. There's like a beautiful park every other block. There's school on the other side of those blocks, and then there's just like grocery stores or shopping centers like everywhere, right? It's Irvine, and I told him I was like, we don't ever have to because he's black and I'm half black, but um, I look Polynesian, right, or Mexican at least, and I told him we don't ever have to worry about getting shot here in Irvine. You know, like that's just not going
No.
to happen. We're just not going to get shot. It's not like cops are inherently racist. They're definitely prejudiced. I definitely think that, right? But it's like the circumstances because I have friends who work in LA County, which is just fucking full of crime, and my friend's like, yeah, like sometimes it's like you look at a guy, he looks completely normal, like you think, "Oh, I don't want to be that cop on YouTube, right?" And then the next thing you know, they pull a gun on you, right? And it's just fucking frightening. So he's like, so now imagine somebody that looks the part, right?
Mhm.
It's really hard. It's really hard not to. And I'm like, that's fucking sucks. He's like, I know. And it's like, and usually, but he also admits like a lot of these cops are amateurs and idiots. Like you're supposed to de-escalate situations, not escalate them, right?
Yeah.
But
Right.
he understands why these people panic, these cops panic. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But like, it's a system, right? It's like a vicious system because these kids are innocent and they live a life where everyone treats them like criminals, and then they're like, well, I guess I am a criminal, you know? And it's just like a
Yeah.
self-defeating system that just keeps
You
feeding
gotta
into it.
you gotta have someone that like believes in you, right?
Hmm.
Or like at least
So
tells you that,
yeah, so
yeah.
my goals are to find a way to indirectly affect those types of people, right? Like I
Yeah.
might not be able to go to these communities, but if they have access to YouTube and they can stumble upon my videos, hopefully I can inspire them to realize that they can be more than whatever they think they can be, right? Um, and I think that's more and more, that's happening more and more, right? And, going back to kind of like what you guys are doing, it's just, revealing to people that it's not a mystery how to improve,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the thing. Like a lot of people assume that becoming an artist or anything of this nature requires some
Mhm.
sort of magical ability or talent. Get out of here. Get out of here, wife. Wife is like, yes, you need talent. um, you know, it's just not true. You just don't. I've seen plenty of people that I, you know, believe that don't have talent. They just work really hard, and I'm one of those people, right? Like I didn't have artistic background and yet I was able to become an artist. And I'm doing that now with my best friend. I'm teaching him how to become an artist. And he's an experiment because he literally had no, because at least in high school, I think I drew a few times. I used to draw some Dragon Ball Z characters. So I had some like, I was definitely intrigued with drawing, right? I remember when I was in middle school, I used to just trace these gangster clown cars, and then just sell them for like $5 or something. People were like, "Oh, I'd love that." So I had like some like artistic interest when I was a kid, right? So when I went to college and I saw that you can draw for a living, it made a lot of sense to me, you know? But I was never the art kid. There was always the person that was so much better than me at art, right? That like loved it and that was their whole passion. It was never my passion. It was more like just this secondary hobby, and I was never good at it. And so, for me, it became very clear that yeah, you don't need to have inherent talent, and I really want to test that with someone that never drew. Like my best friend Kalen, he never drew in high school or anything like that, right? Like he stopped like the rest of the people stopped. Like they stopped in after elementary, right? When drawing was never taken seriously anymore. And so if I can commit him to become an artist in less than a year, then I can commit anybody. I really believe. Um, you know, not everybody, because some people obviously have certain disabilities or whatever. But you get my point. Anyone who has an average, like on the average scale of averageness, if they're fine, there's nothing wrong with them. You know, I can get them to become an artist. I believe this. And so,
Now they really
huh?
and that they really want it. You know, they have to really
No, I
want
can
it.
even train people to learn how to want it. Right?
Okay,
There's
yeah, fair enough.
How's
yeah,
that?
because that's also half the problem. And it reminds me of the story of I was supposed to tell you guys, right? So I'll tell the story and then I'll take another question. I'll take some questions. Um, so we have time. So if you remember, I was talking earlier about like we were talking about teachers who were really aggressive, and when I went to school, I had a teacher. His name was Mike Tracy, and he was a really good teacher. He was very smart. He was very intelligent with his feedback, but also he was like a hard teacher. Like he was really aggressively hard on people. Like one time he told me that I was very gimmicky. He said all my paintings look like a gimmick. And a lot of what he meant by that was that I was just using like texture brushes and trying to cheat my way through a painting, you know? And he was right. Like I was totally trying to just fake it till I made it type of thing. And he said, there's no substance to your painting and you have no control over it. It looks like just a cluttered mess. And that's kind of the way he critiqued me. But it was never so hard that I was demoralized. He just basically said that I was a fraud, right? And that bothered me a lot, right, when I was in school. And so I did everything in my power to learn how to paint, right? Then I started painting and painting and painting and painting and painting. And then he was convinced that I was a painter towards the end of the class, right? So it really worked out for me.
Do you
You know?
think that that's like, do you think that that's like on purpose? Like some people do where they can see the potential in someone, so they like specifically tell them that they can't to make them like push themselves?
Well, that's my argument is no, I don't believe that this is a good,
Oh,
I don't believe this is a good tactic. Um,
Right? I never liked
uh,
that either.
well,
Yeah.
like, let me explain. It worked for me because my personality works for it. I'm not, I don't have many insecurities or low self-esteem, right? So something like that wouldn't destroy me. All it
Yeah.
did is make me feel like, okay, well, let me prove you wrong, kind of thing, right? And I did,
Yeah.
and then I became one of his most prized students, and which was fine. And he was a great teacher. Like I said, he had a lot of good insight. Like the things he would say and teach me was very useful. But at the same time, he was very hard. And like I said, although I loved him as a teacher, looking back, I can see that it only worked for me and other people like me. Um, and and when I say that, it's because there was another student in which he said very similar things too. Right? He was very aggressive with them, you know. And he said, if you just keep painting this way, you'll never make it in the industry, right? He's like, you really should just quit school if you're just going to keep painting this badly. And then that person quit school, right? And here's the thing, like they weren't necessarily bad, okay? Like the drawing that you sent was worse, okay? You see what I'm saying? Like the one that you sent of your past was worse than the student's work, okay, back then.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, and then he did the same thing. He said the same thing to another student. And that student was like, what? And basically did everything in his power to become the best artist he could possibly be. Now he works at Blizzard. And he still hates that teacher. He hates Mike Tracy. Every time I talk to him, he's like, I hate that guy. And I'm like, do you though? Because he kind of seems like he accelerated your growth. Um, so it works sometimes for some people and it doesn't work at all for others, right? That's kind of the point I'm trying to make. And so I experienced this firsthand. So when I was teaching somebody one time, I was explaining to them that their materials are really bad and that they need to really work on that because if if no one can understand what they're doing, like it's just really garbage. And I was pretty mean about it, but I wasn't like as bad. I would never say something like you'll never make it in industry. Right? I was never like that. I was never that hardcore. Right? And I remember just like telling the student like she was bad and she wasn't doing a really good job and she really needs to kind of get her shit together kind of thing, and work on her forms, her values, and the industry has a high demand and et cetera, et cetera. And eventually she wrote me an email and she apologized for crying in class. And I was like, wait, what? You were crying? I had no idea. And this is back when I was in a physical room with the people, right? And I could see their faces. But the thing is, the room was dark, and she was sitting somewhere in the middle of the back, and so I didn't really see her, And so I had no idea if she was crying. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know. I was like, no, I was just trying to help you out. Like, I definitely think you have potential to become great, and yada yada yada. And that was like my first clue that this method might not be my method. And then I then encountered the student that changed my perspective on all this, and she had really bad anatomy, and I basically told her that, and I was like, if you want to make it in this industry, you got to really learn your anatomy, like especially as a character artist. And I was like, you really need to practice and study anatomy because right now it's just not very good. And she's like, I do practice and study anatomy. And I was like, and I looked at her and I was like, look, I can see visually that you don't do enough of it. So I don't doubt that you've tried, but like you need to do more. This is just not anywhere near. This is nowhere near the quality that it needs to be, right?
Mm.
And I said you need to study from whatever you can. She's like, well, I'll only study from real life. And I'm like, dude, that's not practical. Like, how often are you going to be looking at real life reference? He's like, not too often. Wait, hold on just a second. Um, sorry, I got distracted. My daughter, she started like beatboxing in the bathroom. It's like I'm trying to make a point. It's really hard. Um, uh, so anyways, my what was I gonna say? See, I already lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. So then I told her like, you got to study like photos and stuff. Like, don't just look only at you know realistic stuff. Like, because it's just so hard to get that consistently. You know. And that's the only point I was trying to make to her. But we got in like a really heated argument about it, and she's like, "But real life has better references, more reliable in terms of what." And I was like, "I don't disagree with you, but I disagree with you thinking that that's the only tool." I was like, "Even my greatest, my great teacher who taught me anatomy would look at photos. He would even trace from books and stuff like that to help him understand anatomy, right?" Like that's like his job is to teach people how to do life drawing, and he still practices anatomy using digital tools, and would use all kinds of like photos. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was like, so you're saying that you're better than him? And he's like, that's what he gets paid for, right? Remember, I got so mad, and she just was like, would not give in, and eventually it was like, okay, whatever. Like you need to work in your anatomy, then I guess just go look at real life people. But I want you to give me something that looks so realistic then by next class kind of thing, right? I was pretty much like testing her, right? And she's like, all right, fine. And then next class she didn't show up. And the class after that she didn't show up. And the class after that, you know. Wait, just
Mhm.
wait, just 1 second.
Oh man, you gave us a cliffhanger.
Yeah, right?
And then, and then that's the end of the story.
Oh man, come
No.
on.
Oh, did I mute that whole time? No, I'm sorry. No, I was just talking about my wife. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So, yeah, what ended up happening was she just dropped out of my class, and I never saw her again. Right. And and I was like, oh, that sucks, because what hit me was that although she needed to work on her anatomy,
Mhm.
she wasn't a bad artist. You get it? Like she wasn't actually that bad, and yet she gave up because she couldn't appease my orders. And I wasn't wrong, right? Like I don't think I was wrong about what my advice was, but I was wrong about perhaps how to approach her on giving her that advice. Make sense?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that was a lesson I taught myself, and it made me over the years. I started realizing, instead of starting to blame the students for being lazy and procrastinators, like, well, you're not doing the homework I asked you. Well, then I guess you're lazy. I guess you don't work hard. I guess you suck. You know, um, or imply that there's some weakness that is something that you should just be able to just get past. And if they're not doing it, then they're failing. Instead of that mentality, be like, well, what's the problem here? What's the real issue? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you achieving success? What is the real problem, right?
Mhm.
Um, and that method of teaching took me from, I would have like 30 or 40% of my students, even less than that, like 20 to 30% of my students do okay, and or not do okay, but do exceptional in my class and pass. This is back when I was teaching in schools, like in a physical location, right? I would teach like only like out of a class of 30, maybe, five or six would actually do something of value. Okay. But the rest wouldn't. And instead of thinking maybe it's the students, they're just really lazy and they just suck at life. Instead of thinking of that, uh, I thought, well, what if I can take the most uninspired artists or the most uninspired students and become inspired and some of the best students? And I was like, that actually is more of a mark to the teacher versus mark of the student. Maybe it's an excuse of a teacher to blame the student's lack of ability. It's a lazy excuse for a teacher, Because don't get me wrong, there are occasions where people genuinely just are stuck in their own little loop of procrastination, and that's a hard thing to get people out of for sure if they're really stuck in it. But I found more and more there's ways to really get people to work harder. Oscar is a great example, right? Remember I gave you some really critical advice last class? And never at once did I blame you for being bad or terrible or not be able to do the work, nor did I didn't believe you that you had circumstances that were out of your control, right? I was on your side, right? I even made it very clear that I was on Team Oscar, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That helps Oscar then listen to my advice about maybe he needs to work on his time management. And he's like, yeah, I think you're right. And then look, he excelled. He did well, you know? And he's like, it wasn't perfect. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't have to be.
yeah, yeah.
Like
Also,
focusing.
sorry,
What are you saying?
continue.
Sorry, go ahead, Oscar.
No, that I just wanted to say that but I understand still that like it can happen to a teacher because it's not easy, man. Like to teach,
Yeah.
like some people that we don't all come from the same place,
Yeah.
and some people are just like unable to take like when you were telling to this because I've been in other schools and I had colleagues know like but people that study with me
Uh-huh.
and they would get like not ripped but the teacher would tell them like you got to do this and they would do the same like yeah but that's my style or whatever
Yeah.
and man it's just not easy. I don't know
Yeah, it isn't.
like that's a big challenge that I think that's the biggest like
Yeah,
because
I
honestly like man I don't know.
You're right. And I'm saying that some teachers need to try harder. That's all. I'm not saying that
Of course.
it's not entirely on the teacher, but it's a two-way streak. It goes both ways, right? The teacher has to find ways to find encouragement and engagement in that person, and vice versa. That person has to put the effort to engage, right? And like I said, when we're talking about, well, how do I get people that don't have the passion? Well, that's something that you can also teach. I approach it the same way, right? I
Mhm.
teach people how to find passion by thinking of it in a very logical and a sensible way. For instance, I always ask people, hey, if you do something a lot, do you get good at it? And then they're just like,
Obviously.
yeah, of course. And then I'm, well, then do something a lot, right? And then they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And like almost immediately in their head, they're like, of course, why didn't
Mhm.
I put two and two
And they
together?
answer themselves.
Yeah, and then I always then give them an example because you have to prove to them that they've already doing something that they've done a lot that they got good at. And guess what? I'm like, yeah, you've done something a lot, haven't you guys? Like all of you guys, I could prove to all of you guys that there's something that you've done a lot of and that you're really great. That we all have. Like, I don't know most of you guys, but I'm pretty sure that everyone here
Mhm.
is really good at walking,
Yeah, you
right?
got it.
And
Probably.
you're like, well, yeah, of course, right? Like, of course I'm good at walking. Why wouldn't I be? And it's like, well, did you also know that there was some point in your life where you were really terrible at walking? Did you know that? And then everyone immediately remembers when they were toddlers, or at least knows that they were once a toddler, right? And once you have kids, you can see that live. Like you can see how clearly walking does not come naturally to us. Okay, like we definitely learn how to become people who can walk, you know? And that's kind of the
Yeah.
point that I like try to make. Like, you don't just say to the person, just get the work done. You have to also explain to them why it's important and why they're perhaps not doing it. And usually what I found in many people, if you guys ever want to help others out, usually there's a few things that you have to consider that you need to make them understand before you can teach them anything. One of the most valuable things you have to have someone understand is that you're on their side, that you're empathetic to their weaknesses, that you are not there to destroy them, you're there to encourage them, right?
Yeah.
Once you can kind of establish that, then it's easier to kind of say whatever you want to say after that, even if it's very a harsh critique. Because then you're
Mhm.
trying to reveal to them like, look, I'm not trying to tear you down. Like I get it, like like you spend a lot of time on this, but have you ever considered like, have you ever been in a bad relationship before? And you've been in it for years and all your friends are always telling you it's really bad, you should get out. And you're like, no, I love her or I love him, you know? And then one day you finally
Yeah.
get out and then you're like, why wasn't I in that relationship for so long? Why didn't I listen to my friends? It's like, this is similar. Like, I get it. Like you've been painting on this for 20 hours. You think it's the love of your life. He's like, but think about like old paintings that you've done. Like, did you, looking back in time, you know, like you might
Mm.
have thought this was like some of the best work you've ever done, right? And then,
Yeah.
and then now looking back, it's clearly bad. It's like the same thing. Like you're just in the moment, but let me explain to you what you can do to make your painting better today. And this is what you can do. Have you considered working on your forms? You should work on anatomy. Your lighting is a little off. Then people are more open to listen to you, and they become less defensive. Because most people and most everybody gets defensive, and because it's like a biological, natural defense mechanism to just be like anything that hurts us, we have to defend against, right? It's really it's a very noble trait to be insecure if you live in the animal kingdom. Okay, because it's very useful to be like, can I walk on that branch, or is that shit gonna break? I don't think I'm good enough to walk on that branch. I shouldn't walk on that branch. And you're probably right to do so because you've probably saved your life, you know. But that superficial thing that works like in the sense of survival, right? Doesn't make as much sense when you're trying to improve in something that's not going to really hurt you. Like, man, I'm drawing this painting and it's really bad. Like, I shouldn't even try to go in colors. Colors? Yeah, right. You know? Well, see, the thing is that you're not going to die if you do a bad job of painting your colors. Okay? That's the point. Like, you're not going to die. You're just going to paint bad colors. Uh, And once you realize that, then you're, oh, I didn't die. Okay, I can do it again and then again. So it's usually taking that first leap. And so if you empathize with people's insecurities and understand that, like, hey, this person is going to defend their painting because they're going to feel insecure, not by any conscious thought of their own, right? It's just in all of us. Everybody's this way. Okay. And if you can just do that, you can get rid of people's. And I'm really good at spotting that more and more because I've just ran into so many different personalities, you know. So I can spot it like a mile away, and it's a weakness that we all have, and you just got to recognize it, and then find a way to increase their motivation, and increase their self-worth, and then they'll do the work. Almost always.
Do you find is it easy for you to distinguish between the person that is lacking confidence versus like someone who
Yeah,
has like too much of an ego?
yeah, totally.
Like, is
So,
there like a
so
really big difference there? Or?
So usually it's the language, right? So for instance, somebody
Yeah.
that has a lot of confidence will defend by saying they already do something. For instance, like that girl that I said, hey, you need to work on your anatomy. She's like, already,
Yeah, that was why I was asking
like,
because
I
it
already
sounded to
do.
me like that was the issue.
Yeah, I already do my anatomy. Does this sound
Really?
familiar of somebody that's in a high power? Like,
Yeah.
trust me, I'm like a smart person. No, smart people don't fucking say stuff like that, moron. Right? Like it's like Einstein is not like, hey, I have this theory of relativity. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Like nobody says that, dude. No, like you prove it, man. You don't just say that you're smart, right? So, and what I feel bad for someone like Trump because he is stuck in this cognitive dissonance that is amplified because now everybody is listening to what he says. And when you have more people that you said something to, like if you gotta go around saying, hey, I believe the Earth is flat, and you tell this to like a dozen of your friends, and then in the future when somebody tries to convince you that it's not, you'll have a harder time agreeing. You'll disagree. You'll be a little more cognitive dissonant. I mean, meaning that the logical part of your brain is like, yeah, that makes sense, but then the emotional part of your brain is like, nah, but fuck that noise, And the emotional part of the brain almost wins every time in that internal argument. So you got to train yourself to stop listening to your emotional part too often. Emotional is good, but not all the time, right? Um, and so if you only told like 12 of your friends and someone came to you and they really can't convince you and say, oh, you know what, you're right. Like, I guess I never thought of it that way. That does make sense. I guess, the world isn't flat, right? You're like, all right, great. I'm glad we pulled you from the ledge there, you know? Um, but let's imagine the same circumstance, but you've told millions of people or countless millions, yeah? Then it becomes even harder. Do you understand? It become
Hmm.
because you've said so much. You said this so many times to so many people. Like it's like if you back down now, you look like a fool. You understand?
Right.
And it's really hard for somebody to do. This is why Bush, for all of those years, believed that there was weapons of mass destruction, weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
And he said it so many times and so often. He even in the beginning, if he didn't believe it, now he does, right?
Right.
And so it's something that if you recognize it's, and you can change that about yourself to start paying attention to the facts and logical fallacies, you'll improve better. You'll be a smarter person. You'll be like a smart person. And so Donald Trump, I mean, Jesus Christ, like he made all these claims and now he's like trying to do them, even if he didn't believe in them in the first place. Now he's starting to become that picture that he painted of himself um, more and more, which is terrifying, right? And it's just an example of that. So, like I said, that's one symptom. That's a symptom of overconfidence, high ego, and because having that much confidence and ego is again um, another symptom of insecurities, right? Like there's some insecurities you have you just don't want to face. You face them in the opposite direction, which is being aggressively confident and badass. For instance, every time I have a student, I had this one student who was convinced that like he didn't need to do values. He's like, that's not the problem. He's like, look, bro, like I've been doing my values for years. Like I think values is not the problem. I think it's something else. And I was like, no, man, it's truly your values. Like your composition and your values are not very good. You need to really work on those. And he's like, dude, I've been doing it like all, like when I was in high school, I did so much. And I was like, I'm sure you did, but perhaps you weren't paying attention as much as you should have been, or maybe you weren't as attentive to the subtleties, right? But you're missing out on all this stuff. And I was trying to explain to him so many ways for like 2 weeks, and he just was not getting through his head. So I was like, I need to find a way to convince this guy, right? Because his ego is like so big right now, like I can't get through it. And so I was like, okay, let me let me ask you this: who's your favorite artist? And he named his favorite artist, right? And I was like, all right, great. So I grabbed his image off the line, offline or online, and I showed it to him, and I was like, "Is this one of your favorite images, or this is a good one?" He's like, "Yeah, this is my favorite actually." And I was like, "Oh, great." And I was like, and I grabbed his artwork, right? And I put it right next to his favorite artists, okay? And I said, okay, like whose artwork do you think is better? Do you think his artwork is better, or do you think your artwork is better? Okay? And this is a great way to catch people that have high, like large egos, because
Yeah.
if they say that they're all of a sudden better than this artist, they're catching themselves in their own bullshit, right?
Right.
So he was just like, no, man, that guy's like way better, man. Like that's what I want to do. I want to get to that level, right? I was like, okay, great. And I said, so what do you think he's doing that you're not doing? And that's when he like it hit him like a freight train, and he was like, oh, dude, his values are like on point. And I was like, yeah, right. Remember how that time I was talking about you should improve your values, and you're like, no, that's not what I need to do. And I'm like, but this guy does it really well, and you're admired by it. And he's like, oh my gosh, you're right. It's like, and then after that, like whatever stubbornness and ego that he had before, like completely washed over, and he was never that way ever again. It was great. It was crazy. It
That's
was
awesome.
like that one instance, and I found that was a great tool to teach someone that might have an ego. Like you reveal to them their own bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then the second symptom that you would run into is people that are on the opposite side, right? The people that are overtly like defecating to their own work. They think they can never improve. They suck. That the world is like ending every time they do a painting, right?
Hmm.
And the way that you reveal uh, truth to them is the way that I've done for most of my students, which is because most students are like that I reach. I rarely run into super egotistical students, right? Most people have a sense of humbleness to them, right? But every once in a while it happens. But I run into this one more often than not, which is the ones that feel really depressed about their work, or not depressed, but just feel bad, like they don't do a good job, right? It happens, and I get it. And so then I explain to these students that it has nothing to do with talent; it has everything to do with their lack of practice, and you just got to keep practicing. And I recently was running into that with one of the artists on the Discord. You guys might know him as Necros, right? And he was just convinced that his artwork was bad. He was never going to make it. Like he just was so depressing with his statements, right?
That's the
And
guy that we were talking to yesterday.
yeah, and you know what? Let me tell you, like he used to even worse. Okay, he's
Whoa.
gotten way better, dude. He's gotten way better about it, and he's been posting every day, right? And then all I had to do was convince him that like posting, nobody's gonna like the problem with someone at that level is that they are too much in their head. They live
Right.
too much in their head, and they don't see that the reality that they're painting in their head is way worse than the real reality. Is like, and I was trying to explain to him, like, look, no one in their right mind is gonna get so angry at you because your artwork is bad.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's gonna be like, oh my god, this guy's artwork is so bad. Like he just needs to get out of here. Like, why is he even in this Discord? You know? Like that's how he felt. He felt like this is the truth. And I was like, dude, no one's gonna do that. Trust me. I was like, just post it
Yeah.
and then you're gonna see support. People are gonna support you. They're gonna try to talk you down from this type of mentality.
Yep.
Uh,
That's what we were doing.
yeah, yeah. And so then
Yeah.
he didn't want to post. I told him to post tomorrow. He's all right. I'll post tomorrow because I told him to post today, and he's like, no, I'm gonna post tomorrow, or the day of that I asked him. He didn't do it, and then the next day I asked him again. I was like, all right, so are you posting today? And he's like, no, this is just garbage. Like I don't want to share this. Like people are just gonna be disappointed in this. And I was like, no, dude, just post, please, just post. And he's like, okay, I'll post tomorrow. And I'm like, no, 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 post today. And and then he just was like not convinced. And he shared his artwork with me, so I was like, all right, it's fine, I'll post for you. So I grabbed his artwork, posted it on there, and I said, hey guys, give him some love, show some support. He's really he's really turned off on the idea that you guys are gonna. He doesn't realize, that you guys are awesome. And everybody was awesome. Everybody was super supportive and was like, "Hey, man, don't apologize for this." And like, it's no big deal, And I'm very proud of the people on the Discord. I'm proud of you guys doing what you guys did without even me instigating that. And and that's kind of the point. And he now is posting every day, and him posting every day inspired other people to start posting more often, right? And I
Huh.
was like, look how, and I wrote him privately. I was like, look how it changed. It went from you not posting to now being the flagship to everyone else posting, right? It's like, see, and I was like, look, and some people are posting and they're just as terrible, but they're not afraid because we're all hanging out and we're just all posting our terrible artwork, you know? And it was like because we all understand it's not a matter of we're terrible today and we'll always be terrible. It's just a matter of just posting and being consistent, and eventually we won't be as bad as we were, right? And
Yeah.
that's a really
Yeah.
powerful message, and that's the kind of message I try to send to people at that level. Yeah, Necros, he's a young kid too. I think he's just like in the high school inks, just
Yeah, he
naive.
said he was like 18.
Yeah,
He's being like, man, he's into some like super deep thinking for being that young.
yeah. I
It's
told him
like
that too, dude.
crazy.
Yeah, I told him like, dude, you're way too young to be so,
Yeah,
so
seriously.
so upset about like your life not turning out the way you may think it is. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
if I knew what I was gonna do in my 30s when I was like 15 or 16 years old, like I would have been like, nah, you're a liar. Like if the future, if I went into the, if I went into the past, like right now, like Anthony Jones, 32 years old, and goes talk to my 18-year-old version of myself and say, hey, look, you know, in about 4 or 5 years, you're gonna start practicing concept art, and you're gonna do that for almost a decade, and you're gonna be one of the most recognizable concept artists in the industry. And you're
Yeah.
gonna teach many people. You're gonna teach thousands of students across the world, and you're gonna be working on X-Men. You're gonna work at Blizzard. You're gonna do all this cool stuff, man. I would have like looked at that person and be like, "The fuck? What are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense. Like I'm a musician, bro. Like I'm gonna be a rock star." It's like, no, dude, you're not gonna be a rock star. You're gonna be you're gonna be drawing monsters and robots, and you're gonna get really good at it, and people are gonna be impressed by it. And they're like, nah, that's stupid, dude. I don't want to draw robots. Get out of here, nerd. And so and I'll be like, wait, you're also like, do I go bald? So, oh yeah, dude. Two more years, bro. You don't have much time. What? I would have,
You can't.
yeah, my 19 or 18-year-old version of myself would have been like completely floored. Just like the 40 or 50-year-old version of myself would look back and be like if my 50-year-old version comes to talk to me today and be like, yeah, you're gonna be astrophysicist, bro. Like it works out. Or maybe, hey, dude, you invented this new technology that makes everybody not have to eat anymore. I'm like, what in the world? Like what? Okay, whatever. That sounds cool, I guess. Um, yeah, so that's trying to explain it to him. I was like, it's like you have a ton of time. He's like, I don't, man. Like I'm gonna graduate next year, and I'm like, dude, you have a ton of time. Okay,
Yeah. You're
and
not graduating high
yeah,
school.
high school is not a determining factor of your success in life. Exactly. And
Yeah,
he
okay.
was still having a hard time listening to me. And what I ended up doing was I asked him very simple questions again, and I was like, do you believe if you draw a lot, you'll get better? And he's like, of course. And I was like, do you trust my advice? Do you think that my advice is useful? Again, calling people on their bullshit, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I do. And I was like, all right, then post every day. He's like, stop taking your own advice because it makes you really depressed and it makes you feel really awful. So don't listen to yourself. Listen to me. Okay. And he's like, okay, I guess so. And he's been doing it. He's been really good. And I think, he's it's going to take time. I don't think it's going to be overnight. He's going to be all of a sudden the guy exuberance of confidence. And he might never completely remove it. That's the thing too. He might have it always this little sense of like,
Yeah.
self-doubt and insecurity. It might be impossible to entirely remove it, right? But he'll be able to manage it. Because I've met artists that are that way, right? Like these artists that are amazing artists who are great and have amazing work and inspire so many fucking people in this world, but they're so insecure about their own work. even though they're amazing
and
artists. And I'm
that
not one
that
of
can
those.
also be a. I'm sorry, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I'm not one of those people. Like, I always think my shit's dope until someone tells me that it isn't. And but the thing is that I'm not stubborn enough to just convince myself that I'm always dope. Like when I
That's
was
good, man. That's
yeah,
also good, man.
when I was starting to learn, and I was like, man, this is amazing orc drawing that I did, right? And I showed this to somebody. I was like, this is awful. I'm like, oh yeah, I see what you're saying. I didn't see that before because at the time, like, I was just amazed that I was even getting good at art, right? Like I was like, I can't even believe that
Awesome.
I'm doing good at all. Like people should be just impressed by my sheer effort, right? And nobody was impressed. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then I just kept working around it. And I remember being defensive here and there every time like someone would give me really harsh criticism. But I started realizing that the more I took people's criticism, the better I got. So I was like, oh, that's kind of stupid of me to like not listen to people's advice. And so I started listening to more and more people's advice. Um, but what I'm trying to get at is that I at the same time have pride for what I do, right? I'm not like, oh man, my work is bad. I never will do that, right? I feel like if I do bad work, then I'm like, oh yeah, it's pretty bad. But it's not like I never do good work. Like I can recognize when I do good work and when I do bad work, you know? And and for instance, like I think when I started this painting, I felt cool about that face, but oh, that face is kind of stupid. I'm gonna just do a different one. Oh, this one feels way better. I'll keep with this one. You know, and that
Yeah.
allows me to kind of iterate like live and quickly and objectively versus just being caught up too much in like what I think is dope. And I'm like, no, it's not that good. It's not very interesting. The design is too boring. It's too derpy, right? So I was like, I just change it. It's no big deal. And I'd learned that over the years. But like, I'm a very rare bird, right? Like most artists that I run into are super like um, self-deprecating about their work, right? Like I always say like I'm really fast because I am. It's a fucking fact, you know? But it doesn't mean that I'm the greatest artist in the goddamn world. I'm just a fast
Yeah.
artist. I've trained myself to be that fast. And it's not hubris talking, it's just reality. Right? I used to not be fast. Then I made myself fast. And so that's why whenever you guys say, "Oh my gosh, I didn't paint my painting in 10 minutes," I'm like, dude, that like not many people can. You know, it's not a thing
And I,
in the industry, right? Like it's not like I know amazing artists who spend days doing amazing paintings. You know, so it's not something to be attracted to if that's something you don't really care for. Ah, there it is.
Woo!
Yeah, this is some of the best work I've ever done.
How
Great.
long ago was that?
At least like 10 years ago. It was like right when I first started drawing. Oh, this is
That's so much improvement in such a short amount of time.
this is
Yeah,
great.
man.
Here, I'm
Jeez.
gonna do the before and after because I have
Yeah.
to. I'm gonna paint the same painting just like you guys.
Is
Post on Discord.
Yeah. So
is
anyway,
this is is
so
the
but when I
speed
did
that you
this,
paint at? Oh, sorry.
so when I did this painting, yeah, I keep interrupting you. I'll let you talk. But the time that I did this painting, yeah, I thought I was the top shit. I was like, dude, look at this. I'm so good at this. And then like I think like stuff like looking on ArtStation or not ArtStation but like DeviantArt and stuff like that. It brought me back to reality really quickly. What I'm saying is that I encourage my students and anybody, yeah, have pride in what you do because if you consistently hate what you do every single day, um, that sucks, dude. But at the same time, like be open to the idea that you're not the greatest, right? And you'll improve more. Go ahead and talk. I was talking this whole time. I want to hear what you had to say.
Well, I was just gonna ask, just because you had just mentioned, talking about like the speed that you paint at, and also just like the massive amount of like improvement that you've made in such a short amount of time. Like, um, do you think that that speed came from just like the technique that you paint in, or is it because
Yeah,
of
it's a
something
combination
else?
of everything. It's specifically just this. It's specifically the act of just me wanting to be a fast painter.
Okay.
I'm like very technical. Like I'm very technically inclined. Like I like to be technically good at stuff. For instance, like when I
Mhm.
would play like games like StarCraft, like I would like technically try to learn the mechanics and technically master the micro and macro parts of the game. Not at like a super high level, obviously, because I'm not pro. But I try, and then like I play games like I think like the games where I really got good were like World of Warcraft, the first one, vanilla. I was
Mm.
really good at that game, and I learned a lot about how to get good at stuff from that. When I was trying to play guitar, even though I was like in a pop punk band, I would listen to like metal, like Ingwie Malmsteen, Steve Vai, like these master
Malmsteen.
guitarists,
Ooh.
because these
Yeah.
master guitarists, like I wanted to be like really like a master of my guitar, even though I was playing pop punk like music. Like people like Blink-182 was like one of my favorite bands, and the person that I was most admired by was Travis, right? Because he was like so like technically amazing with his instrument, and it was really impressive. Even though I wasn't a drummer, right?
I was from
Um,
Mhm.
Blink, yeah.
yeah, he was just like so good, and like so those types of stuff always interest me. So when I decided to become an artist, I was just like, hey, I want to be like like my teacher once said, if you're not good, um, then be fast. And if you're not fast, then be good, right? And I was like, what if you're fast and good, bro? And he was like,
That's
that
true.
doesn't,
That's
he's
true.
like, yeah, he's like, that doesn't happen. And I was like, oh, challenge accepted, you know?
That's cool as well.
And I spent most of my career like making that the staple of my growth, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so it's not like my technique alone or anything. Like I learned, and like unturned every rock I needed to kind of get to where I'm at today, right? And the biggest advice I can give you on how if this is something that's also equally as interesting to you, um, the best advice I can give you is that speed comes with like basically understanding. You have to know what not to do as just as much as what to do. And so if you want to be really fast and really good, you have to make very little mistakes. I learned this from watching a really amazing painter. His name is Steve Houston, and he had like a 4-hour lecture, and halfway through, like 3.5 hours through his lecture, he eventually, like I was like asked him, or my life drawing instructor, I asked him, I was like, he has to do a demo, doesn't he? And he's like, oh yeah, that's right. So he goes up to him with 30 minutes left and it's like, hey, can you do a demo now? And he's like, oh yeah, of course I can do the demo. Because the whole time he was just talking about how awesome he was. He's like, look how awesome I was when I did this painting. Look how awesome this painting is, which was really actually pretty insightful. It wasn't like he was, it wasn't like he was arrogant or anything. It just was really cool, right? And he was talking about all these cool stories, and it's just really interesting. But nothing really resonated with me, right? It was just kind of a little boring, but it was, valuable kind of just to be around him and see his success with the stuff he did. But eventually, what really stuck with me and always has stuck with me all these years is that he sets up his easel, he sets up his paints, he sets up his canvas. And at this whole time when he's doing all this, I'm just like, dude, he's not going to have any time to paint. Like now he only has like 10, 15 minutes left. And I remember he looking back at the audience and saying to all of us, I'm the fastest painter you'll ever meet or see, right? And I was like, what? Just like out of nowhere, just super cocky. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And then like one stroke, like an arm, just all of a sudden appeared. I was like, what? And then another stroke, another stroke, another stroke, and all of a sudden, like the picture was just coming to fruition. And I was like, what the? And
I can't believe shit like
yeah, and
that.
it was
Oh,
just like going. It was just like it was insanely fast how quickly he was putting it together. And he was still telling stories about his success and stuff like that. He wasn't even talking about the painting really, and then I was just like, "What is happening?" And every time I would blink, like more of the picture would be painted, and I'm like, "No, don't blink," And so I learned a very very interesting lesson that day. What I learned was he paints so fast and so good. Traditionally, he did it all in oils, and it made me realize, hey, like I am supposedly using one of the tools that's supposed to make my life fast, like these types of things faster, right? Right? Isn't that the case? Like digital is supposed to be faster than traditional, but yet
Right.
he is painting this thing faster than anything I've ever seen painted. I have even my digital painters that I had, and people that I follow, and like Gnomon videos that I've seen. I've never seen anyone paint this good and this fast, and let alone in traditional. And then it made me realize, it's like, well, who else is like this? And I discovered lots of traditional artists who are badass, paint fast.
Norman Rockwell was apparently, for what I've read, he was notoriously fast as
Yeah,
well.
and what it was is that it's not
Very,
because, yeah, it's not because they were just like painting like, it's just like
no,
everything that they were doing was just accurate. Like Leyendecker, you can tell, like he would just draw all the necessary strokes.
yeah,
And that's when I
yeah,
discovered that it has nothing to do with the tool, speed. What
Right.
speed truly comes from is what you're doing, like how to prevent your painting from being a complete shit show. Because a lot of times what happens is when people paint, the reason why it takes so long for people to paint anything of value has a lot to do. It has a lot to do with their correcting. They're constantly correcting their painting. They're not adding anything new. They're just trying to fix what's already broken. Right? And so then the answer to that solution is try not to break too much of your painting. Yeah. So if you really want speed, yeah, that's how you get it. You get speed by being a little bit more perfect, and it's hard.
I think
It's very hard. You have to practice a lot, and you have to study a lot. You have to know more shit than you don't know, right? Meaning that the less reference you use externally, that means the more you actually know what's going on. Now, if you ask me to paint something like a cat or like a dog, yeah, it's going to be garbage because I don't know how to paint a cat or dog, you know? Can I paint a cat or dog? Yeah, of course, right? Just give me some reference, you know? But can I do it from memory? Hell no, right? Not even close. I can't even think where to start. But is that something that's fixable? Of course it is. You know,
Yeah.
can I learn how to paint a dog? Of course. No, now the real question is, do I care about to learn how to paint a dog? No, not really. You know, unless like I get approached by this multi-billion-dollar tycoon who's just like, I'll give you $1 billion, bro, to learn how to paint dogs. I'm like, all right, you know,
Yeah.
but that's not the case.
yeah,
You know, and so, uh, you know, my point to you guys is like, yeah, speed usually comes from just being less screwy with your work. Just try to be more effective, and you just try to practice that. Just got to practice, practice, practice. You got to learn more. You have to have more insight than you have, you know, anything else. Like the reason why you should learn your anatomy, right? If you think about it in this context, is that you don't have to keep looking at anatomy to know what the hell anatomy you're doing. You know, like if you just know at least on a very basic level, you can get started painting now. You don't have to wait, and that's faster. You know, sometimes people ask like, "What tools do you use to draw straight lines?" It's like, well, I just draw straight lines. That's the fastest way to draw a straight line. Just draw the straight line. Is it easy? No, right? But can it be done? Of course. So you know, going back to kind of the bigger point here about like confidence and all stuff, I think it's important to recognize the kind of person you're talking to, so they can help them. I know
Yeah.
people that are really anxious about their work are a little bit more fragile, so you have to be a lot more compassionate, a lot more patient. You know, um, patience is really key to help these types of people because they're going to give you every excuse in the book or every reason they can to tell you why they suck and why they can never improve. So you just got to keep with them until they eventually see past their own bullshit. Same thing with egotistical. And it's like not people aren't trying to be egotistical because they're jerk offs. It's because you know they just have insecurities in their life, and it
It's like a
sucks.
defense mechanism, right?
Yeah, and it's like I said, I'm really frustrated with someone like Donald Trump. He's had opportunity after opportunity to truly do something with his life, and and he's finally the president. He's still like he's screwing it up, and it's something that he can easily like. I was really hoping that like he was just playing a big joke on us. He's like, you know, all those things I said during the campaign, it's all a lie. Now that I'm in
Yeah.
office, I'm truly gonna do the things that I think are good for America. Psych, everybody who thought that I was racist, right? I actually still don't believe that Trump is racist. I really don't think he is. I think he's just I think he's definitely prejudiced, like heavily prejudiced. But I don't really believe he wants to do racist things and do race like I really don't believe that. But I don't think it won't prevent him from signing racist and mostly prejudiced documents that other fucking people want him to sign because he's just
Yeah.
like he's clearly like a muppet now. I don't even think he
Hmm.
knows half the things he's writing and doing. But
I
see,
don't think he cares
yeah,
about
I don't
it.
think he cares.
I don't think he gives a shit about anybody. Honestly, it's not
Yeah,
about even race.
yeah, it's
He's
he's not
he's
racist. He
a
hates everybody
politician.
equally. There it is.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
He's gonna do whatever. He's gonna do what exactly. That's how equally he sees people.
yeah.
He doesn't give a shit about anybody.
That's a
So
good
Well,
he's
that's a
dude,
good thought. I didn't think of it that way. Like he's not
just any.
racist. He just doesn't care about anybody except for
well,
himself.
that was the thing. That was the thing that, like, I know that you don't want to get like too political, but like people have said, like, oh well, he's a businessman, and to be a successful businessman, like, you have to fail to like be successful. But like, I think that the thing that that people that are using that defense for him, it's like, but the way that you fail is really important, and like the way that he was like succeeding was just by like literally not paying people for the work that they were doing for him, and then like threatening to sue them and stuff, and that's like not a good way to like fail at a business. Is just like by like not paying the people for work that they're doing.
Yeah,
Like that's
he's not.
crazy.
Yeah, he's not the best. And so getting to the kind of the like so looking at someone like him on a grand scale, you can see it's very clear, man. Like and if you think about this on a lower scale, like with students and other colleagues, you can see that in other people. And before you start to write them off, because I don't think people genuinely are like inherently evil, or at least they don't try to be. Uh, you become a little bit more forgiving. But of course, there are evil people, and of course, there's people that are jerk offs, and you don't have to be nice to them. And I would not encourage you to be. Right? Like I'm not a complete pacifist. If that person's a jerk off, they're a jerk off.
Yeah.
And one real point I want to make about all this is that you're going to run into people in the art industry that you think are really good people, and or not really that. Like you just love their work, and you meet them in real life, and they're not very nice. And I want you
Yeah,
to
man.
yeah, I want you to remember this because a really good point. Because what happens is that sometimes people will ignore these things, and because they're like, well, yeah, I still want to make it in this industry, so I want to find a way to become, friends with this person, so that way, I can get some
Yeah, that's
leverage.
bad, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason why I advise against this, because obviously on a moral standpoint, it makes sense why what I'm trying to say, right? Like, yeah, you should
Yeah.
just be yourself. You should not hang out with people that you don't have any real interest in, even if they're like the art director to a major game company or something, you know. Um, but here's a perspective that you should really consider is that, well, let's say you do go in the good graces of this person, and this person does like you, even though they're a jerk off, and then they do give you a job. Well, guess what? You're working with this person now, right? Every day, and
Yeah.
they're giving you
Yeah.
feedback every day, and it's gonna destroy you. And I've had friends that this happened to, where they work for great companies and great artists, but the people they just don't click with them. And sometimes, sometimes people might not even be jerks or mean people, but you just don't click with them. Then again, just well, then keep them at arm's length. You don't have to always impress and appease every single person, right? And I have some people on my list of people that I just don't want to associate myself with anymore. So it's not like I'm immune from this, where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a really nice guy. I find them good in everybody. No, there's some people that I really don't want to have any time. I don't want to spend any time. I'd rather spend whatever time I have on this planet with the people that are freaking awesome, you know, versus trying to satisfy these other people's egos and their try to
Isn't
also.
isn't life so much better that way?
It is. So much better.
Right?
My day by
I
day
I
is much
believe the
better.
same thing.
Yeah. And so I encourage people, especially, you guys are still starting out, so it can be confusing when you meet somebody that you really admire and they're just not very friendly. Um,
Yeah.
Trust me, yeah, you don't have to be friendly back to them. You
To
know?
me, it happened a couple of times
Oh yeah?
here. Yeah, man. I was my. It was like my. I mean, I'm obviously not gonna say
Yeah, it's not
names or
professional,
anything,
sure.
life to do this. But I was flipping out like because I had the opportunity to meet a couple of people, and this is like I'm a nice person, man. I don't like I'm not
I don't know.
either
I don't
annoying
know.
or whatever, right? But yeah,
I
yeah,
just
I would say that. Nobody who's nice would say that, but yeah, I think I am. Whatever. I just was nice, you know. I was not even like, hey, can you give me a job or whatever. I was just being nice, and oh man, like my perception changed so much from these people, and
yeah, it
it was
happens.
weird. It was very strange because I was around other people that they were with me, and they changed all their personality when they were around those other people, and I was like, fuck this, because this, but whatever, I
Yeah,
don't
no,
know,
you're right.
I don't,
You're right. That happens, and I'm trying to say you guys don't need to do that. Just be who you are. And here's the thing: like, if you are the asshole, then keep being an asshole. Just you just might have to only work freelance because people might not want to work with you. You know,
yeah,
you might have to just live a life of solitude. Like I said, I'm not even here to say that if you're a jerk, change that. Like, I don't really think, like, as long as you're not hurting people deliberately, right?
yeah,
Like, that's the only thing I'm truly against. But yeah, some people, I have some friends that are kind of like mean people, but they're really kind-hearted in all the ways it matters. But they're like overly
Right.
critical, and they always have this kind of skeptical point of view, right? But they're like people that have saved my life, in a lot of different ways. Do you understand? And so I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, these people are great, like people, even if they have like this really negative outlook on life. But like when it comes to family and friends, like they don't stop for an instance to help, you know? Um,
Mhm.
so I have like all walks, and I have people that are overtly positive and great, and a lot of optimism. But like when I ask for help, or like anytime there's a sense of need, they're not there. So that also
Mhm.
exists. So I only pay attention to the people who do more than just what they say and act, right? And like you should just do the same. You should just keep the people that you want to keep around because it makes you better, right? And this is true for
Mhm.
my children too. I had my kids hang out with this really awful girl. She's actually gotten better. We even talked to their parents about it because look, we love their parents. The parents are actually her. That's how they hang out because we're really good friends with the parents, right? We've known them for years, and they're just kids like out of control, and it's just really hard. We don't want our daughter to hang out with her. One weekend they hung out, and like our daughter completely turned like evil. She just became this really troubling child. I couldn't believe it. It's like really just one weekend, and so we stopped. And it's the same as you get older. As you get older, it's the same thing. The people you associate yourself with is just kind of the person you're going to be. And then I really believe this, and that's why I encourage people in Discord to be nice to one another, help each other out. Be critical if you need to be, but at the same time, lead with compassion before anything else, right? And
Yeah.
once you do that, like most people will look. Even if because some people don't click with other people, it just happens. It's fine. But you don't have to necessarily um, ignore people. Like I said, like I just hang out with the people that clearly are better for me. But it doesn't mean that the people that I don't necessarily think are the best people to hang out with, I don't ignore them if they reach out to me. I'm like, let's hang out, because they can always prove me wrong, right? And that's happened, time and time again. I had friends who proved me entirely wrong. Like I thought they were jerk offs, and I was like, I don't know if I want to hang out with this guy. Kalen Chalk is one of those people. He was so negative, like all the time. Everything sucked. Everyone's out to get him kind of attitude. Um, and I just was annoyed by it. And then, some things happened to him, and his whole perspective changed on life. And then he all of a sudden became this really awesome guy. He still has his negative outlook on things. It's still just deep in his blood, but he's actually really fantastic. He's always been there for me. He's always been super supportive of all the things I've done. That's why whenever I do these travels or I do workshops overseas and I have a person that I want to bring on, I only bring people like him because I know people that are better environment artists than him, right? They're more accomplished and have more of a reputable resume, but he's just a better person and a better teacher than some of these people, right? He just is. And so I value that above anything else, right? The only difference between me and him, perhaps, is that I really put a lot of ambition to try to get really far in my career, and he had not as much as I did. That's probably the only difference. But he has the same positive outlook. He has a really same positive way of helping people grow, you know. But at the same time, like I tell people this, I'm like, look, like you only want to work with people you care about, because then life's much better. Life's just so much better. Okay, life's too short to just work for other people that you hate. It's just because it's like, oh, well, I'm working on this badass game though. It's like no one cares. No one truly cares, you know? At least not the people who matter. The people who matter will be proud of you and accomplish, but they don't care that you worked on like StarCraft. Like my friends will hang out with me because like, dude, we only hang out with you because you worked on StarCraft. You stopped working on it? Well, sorry, bro. They hang out with me because of me, right? And you should keep that always in mind. Like I'm still great friends with a lot of people. That's why I keep getting jobs too. Is indirectly like a lot of friends always reach out to me, and help out. I had like some real issues that happened to me and through my career, and because of all the kind things that I've done throughout my career, and the siding on the side or living on the side of compassion has really saved me in a lot of instances. If I didn't do that, I would have definitely been burned at the stake in a lot of these occasions, right? But I haven't been, and so I highly encourage you guys to remember that. Like you can truly make huge mistakes, but because if you've done enough good things and you really like people will be more forgiving of your failures. Like you were saying with Donald Trump, right? No one is really that forgiving of his because the way he tried to find solutions to his problems was to exploit others, and that just makes things worse. It compounds the kind of reality he has. Yeah,
It's just disappointing,
Yeah, I wish I could have a conversation with him. I probably can turn him if I can talk to him. Oh, I think I'm that good, guys. I'm the best.
Whoa.
I'm like the best teacher.
So good. That's how Trump speaks.
Yeah, I think I am like the best. Anyways, any other questions? I'll take other questions if you guys have. It doesn't have to be related to kind of topics we're talking about, obviously.
I have a quick comment and then
Well,
probably pretty
let's
easy
see if
thing
anyone
to
else
catch up.
has any questions, just to make sure, because I think
That'd be good.
you were talking a bit. Not to say that I don't mind. No, it's not that. It's just I'd rather see if just to make sure that nobody else is like, just been like, why are these guys talking? Does anyone have any question?
I wanted to know if do you like is there a difference between finding jobs? Well, let me think about my question. Like finding working for the industry that means that you're working for video games and movies, or is there a different thing that you have to do as a character artist, or as an illustrator as well? But you're a character artist, so that I would ask that way.
Yeah, sure.
Is there a difference?
Yeah, there's like some differences whether you work on film versus games, and the differences are kind of um, they're relatively clear, right? I think working for movies, you have to almost always be pretty realistic, right? Working with games, like there's a variety of things. Like you can be realistic or semi-realistic or semi-stylized or fully stylized, there's a wider range of kind of possibilities there. And then in film, there's a faster turnaround. This is why what most people use 3D or photo bashing because the turnaround's just so fast. In video games, it can also happen in video games. So and then there's obviously differences and similarities. The thing that I usually try to get people to focus on though is to not focus on so much that stuff. Just focus on like if you're worried about like what kind of job you can get and stuff.
Yeah, that's basically my problem.
Yeah, I think the best way to think about this is just make the work that you want to do. Make your portfolio pretty much embody the kind of work you actually want to do. And that is really genuine advice. Like, because other people will tell you need more of this or you more of that or whatever. And to me, that's just a really nice way of them just saying that you're not very good or you're not good enough. Okay? Because when people misdirect you a little bit, it's safer. It's safer to say, oh, you just need more environments in your portfolio versus your character designs are just, you're not going to get jobs with this work. It's just not very good.
But it would be better if they would just say that, because then you can just get better at that. Yeah.
Yeah, but like we were just talking about before, some people just don't have the heart to break your heart. And even if they did, maybe it would be pretty impactful, right? In a negative way. It's no fault of most people because people don't train people how to critique. That's not a thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes people critique your hiring managers or art managers, and some of these guys might not know entirely what they're talking about. You know, they're not entirely qualified, perhaps, to give you a critique. Um, Sometimes people will be really harsh on you and tell you all the reasons why you suck, and that's great if it's helpful. It's helpful, but like I'm trying to say is like if whether somebody tells you something or not, don't ever deviate from what you really want to do.
Yeah.
And if people tell you need to add more of this or more of that, and you disagree, then ask yourself, well, like how could I have gotten them not to say those things? And the answer is very clear: being amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Because then, if you're truly amazing, they wouldn't say the things it said. Most likely, they'll say something like, "Oh my gosh, like if we could, we would hire you, you know, but we don't
Yeah.
have a position," which is totally a thing, right? Like they might not actually have a place for you, but maybe if you're so good, they will make a place. That happens too, you know. So let me give you an example. Like Vitaly Bolgarov doesn't have variety in his portfolio. It's pretty much just mechs or hard surface vehicle design, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if imagine him showing his portfolio. I mean, they're
Yeah.
not going to be like, you really need more environments. Like,
No.
you really need to gotta work. Yeah, dude, you need to. I know you have all these mechs, bro, but you have some characters in here. You need some environments, bro. You need to. It'd be like, what are you fucking talking about? You know? Do you see how ludicrous it would sound to someone like Vitaly?
Yeah, that would be, you'd be an idiot to tell him
Yeah.
or
So
you're just being mean because
yeah, well, you're not being mean. You're just trying to tell them in a way that wouldn't hurt their feelings. But see, it's easier now not to say that to Vitaly. You would just be like, "You're amazing. Like, you're applying to the wrong company. We work on Sesame Street. Like, why are you applying to us? Like we don't like this is great, but we don't put mechs and tinks in there in Sesame Street. You know?
we'll call it. Yeah.
And so the point I'm trying to make is that this doesn't happen, right, in the industry. It just doesn't. And so what you got to do is like, okay, find someone that's similar to the kind of stuff you want to do, like this, right? Look at this image and be like, how can I be as good as this artist? No, but more practical examples like Vitaly or anybody that's similar to the kind of stuff you like, right? Like if you really want to be like a splash page.
Like, for example, I love like Sergei Kolosov
Yeah,
or
well, then look at his stuff and then ask yourself why your stuff is not as good as theirs,
yeah,
right? Like,
he's,
like this guy, for instance, is similar, like Peter, right?
yeah,
Like,
pure
put your stuff
Dude,
next
that
to
guy
his.
is awesome.
Yeah, but you
he's
know
sick,
what?
man.
You know what though? He needs more environments, and like, I think he needs some more prop design in here. I just don't know about this guy though. I don't know if
Yeah,
he's like again,
I
it's
get it.
ludicrous,
Yeah.
right? He's not gonna get these types of critiques. He just isn't. Okay.
I
And
I
so,
love the fact I love the fact, sorry, this is real quick. I love the fact that that guy's work is so unique in like its style and its execution, and he's like being hired for like Dishonored 2 and stuff like that. That's all.
yeah, that's what I'm
But
saying.
I think
And his work,
he's got it down.
yeah,
I
and
think
his
he's
work,
got it down. He has like, sorry, uh, like he has like composition and his brushes. Like he already knows who he is.
I turned off
I
the
think.
screen for a
Yeah.
second. I think I have to go. I have a meeting soon.
Oh,
Hold on. Let me just, hey, are we still doing a meeting? Give me 5 minutes. Yo. All right. I just had to share this information to the team. Yeah, dude. So like, I agree with y'all. You know, he's great and he got work. You know, the work will come, and the kind of stuff that Dishonored wants is stuff like that, like really bizarre, abstract stuff.
Yeah.
You know, Sergi works there too, and he does very similar style. Like they really admire that kind of aesthetic. You know, I just got approached by some movie director and producer to work on some sort of like horror film. Like, it makes sense.
Oh, nice.
You know, it just
Awesome.
makes sense. Like they're not coming
It
to
does.
be like, oh,
Yeah.
dude, you know, we're thinking about making a Cars ripoff. You know, like a 3D animated film for kids, and we think you're the right guy to do it. No, man, no one's approaching me about that shit because I'm terrible at that stuff. I don't, or at least I don't have anything to demonstrate if I have any ability to do it. You know, it just makes sense. And so I always encourage people to just not be distracted by silly things like what is the difference. No, just focus on what you want to do and just do a lot of it and be good at it. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight, right? But if you just become great at it, like these guys that you just mentioned, right? People will find you. You know, it might take years, but it's worth it because then you'll be doing what you love versus just getting a job right away and you're just doing like mobile app art, and then 4 or 5 years later you realize you have an existential crisis and you're like, what am I doing? You know?
I barely get work, and I'm happy with, like, I'm much happier, man. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And
I
so keep that up is what I'm trying to say. And eventually in time you'll become really notable. And you'll be one of these artists that people can come up to and be really happy to talk to. And then you'll learn from the example of the people that weren't so kind to you when you reached out to them to not do that. And then be someone that's more approachable and loving to upcoming artists. Because guess what? It's just a matter of time for y'all to be badasses. So anyone who treats you like you're not good, as if they were always great, is delusional. You know?
yeah, it's like a eating chain. What is the name? I don't know. Like, it's just a matter of time. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So it just takes time, guys. Be patient. Right? Remember? Remember my amazing drawing here? I think
Oh,
I'm gonna paint this right
would you
now.
do that guy? Would you do that guy again? Like
Yeah, I'm gonna
now?
do it
Would
right
you?
now. I'm gonna do it after class while I'm in my meeting. I'm gonna paint
I was gonna tell you, yeah, dude, please, yeah.
it. Okay.
Do the iron fist, like iron hand, like the two,
All
like
right.
that.
Anyway, I'm gonna get going. So if you guys you know, you guys did great. If, for those of you who might have more questions, you know, don't worry, we still have more classes in the future. And I think your guys' class is unique to the fact that we might have Q&As every class. So keep in mind to keep working hard, talk to each other, hang out with each other, encourage each other, you know, be supportive. And with that being said, I'll let you guys go. Have a great weekend. Appreciate y'all.
You too. Thank you.
Yeah, great
Yeah.
work.
Thanks, man. You too. Have a nice
Yeah,
man.
great talk, everybody. Good job. Laters. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you liked the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.